For centuries, farmers across Europe planted a root vegetable that behaved almost like a food machine. Put it in the ground once, and it kept producing. Winter didn't kill it. Frost made it sweeter. While other crops rotted in storage or froze in the field, this one waited patiently underground, storing sugar and energy until someone came to dig it up. Ancient writers recorded it. Roman elites developed a taste for it. By the Middle Ages, it had quietly become one of the crops that helped communities survive the hardest months of the year, when food was scarce and the next harvest was still weeks away. Then something strange happened. Around the 17th century, as farming began to change across Europe, this plant started disappearing. Not because it failed in the soil, not because people stopped liking the taste. Within a few generations, it was simply replaced, pushed aside by another root vegetable that looked cleaner, grew straighter, and fit better into a rapidly changing food system. Today, most people have never even heard of it. The plant is called skirret. It's better than carrots. Plant it once, and you will harvest it forever, even in winter. But why was it buried? How did a crop that fed Europe for over 1,000 years manage to vanish almost completely? And what replaced it? Well, here is the story. But before we get into it, welcome to Lost Green Lore. If you enjoy this kind of content, you will really help us out if you could like the video and hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Now moving on. Most of the root vegetables people grow today follow a very predictable life cycle. Carrots, parsnips, and turnips are typically grown as annual crops in the garden. You plant them in spring, they grow for a season, and when harvest time comes, pulling them from the soil ends the plant's life. Next year, the entire process begins again from seed. It's a cycle built around constant planting and replacement. Skirret does not play by those rules. Botanically known as Sium sisarum, it belongs to the same plant family as carrots and parsley, the Apiaceae. But unlike its relatives, skirret behaves like a long-term resident rather than a seasonal visitor. Once established in the soil, the plant forms a perennial crown that returns every year. From that crown grows a cluster of slender white storage roots, technically called fascicles. Instead of a single root like a carrot, skirret produces a bundle, sometimes a dozen or more edible roots radiating from one central base. Those roots are more than just food, they are the plant's survival system. As temperatures drop, skirret begins converting stored starch into sugar. This shift lowers the freezing point inside its tissues, protecting the roots from winter damage. In practical terms, the plant creates its own antifreeze. Gardeners and historians alike have long noted the same surprising result. The colder the soil becomes, the sweeter the harvested roots taste. That adaptation allowed skirret to do something most vegetables cannot: remain alive and edible in the ground throughout winter. While many crops either rot in storage or die when the soil freezes, skirret simply waits underground, its sugar-rich roots preserved by the cold. For early farmers, this wasn't just a botanical curiosity. It meant a reliable source of calories that could survive conditions where many other crops failed. And that reliability would soon make skirret valuable far beyond the garden. You see, long before modern agriculture standardized the vegetables we recognize today, skirret had already found its way into the kitchens of the Roman Empire. One of the earliest written references comes from Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist whose first-century work, Naturalis Historia, catalogued hundreds of plants used across Roman society. Among them was a sweet root, known for its delicate flavor and unusual ability to thrive in cooler climates. But skirret wasn't just another entry in a botanical list. It had fans in high places. According to Roman accounts, Emperor Tiberius, who ruled from 14 to 37 AD, developed a particular taste for the crop. The variety he preferred did not come from Italy itself. Instead, it was grown in the Rhineland region of Germania, where the cooler northern climate produced roots that were considered sweeter and more flavorful. Roman administrators reportedly required communities there to send shipments of the crop south as tribute. In practical terms, that meant a vegetable was moving across the empire through the same channels used for taxation and trade. Grain, wine, olives, and bundles of sweet skirret roots traveling along Roman supply routes. Its appeal was easy to understand. Roman cuisine valued ingredients that balanced sweetness and aroma, and skirret offered both. Classical descriptions often compare its flavor to a cross between carrots and parsnips, but noticeably sweeter. Cooked roots were typically boiled or stewed, sometimes served with honey or sauces that highlighted their natural sugar content. For Roman elites, the plant occupied a curious middle ground. It was still a root vegetable, grown in soil like many others, yet its sweetness gave it a reputation closer to a treat than a staple. And while empires rise and fall, certain crops have a way of surviving long after the politics around them disappear. When Rome eventually collapsed, Skirret did not vanish with it. Instead, the plant continued its quiet journey through European agriculture, waiting for the next group of growers to recognize its value. Well, after the Roman Empire faded, much of Europe's agricultural knowledge survived in an unexpected place: monasteries. Medieval monasteries were more than religious centers. They were laboratories of farming. Monks documented crops, experimented with cultivation methods, and preserved plants that proved reliable year after year. Among the vegetables that quietly held its place in these gardens was skirret. To understand why monks valued it, you have to understand a seasonal danger that haunted medieval life: the hungry gap. This was the stretch of late winter and early spring, when stored food supplies were nearly exhausted, but new crops had not yet matured. Grain reserves from the previous harvest were running low. Apples and preserved fruits stored in cellars were often spoiled by this point. Fresh vegetables from the coming growing season were still weeks away. For many communities, this narrow window between February and April could become a genuine period of scarcity. Skirret offered a rare solution. Because the plant stores its energy underground in those clusters of roots, it remains alive beneath the soil even through cold winters. When the ground softens enough to dig, sometimes while frost still lingers in the field, the roots can be harvested directly from the earth. Historical cooking records from England and continental Europe describe the roots being boiled, stewed, or battered and fried into fritters, dishes that made use of the plant's naturally high sugar content. The timing mattered as much as the flavor. When other vegetables had long since been eaten or spoiled, skirret was still there, alive in the soil, waiting to be harvested. For centuries, that reliability gave it a steady place in European gardens. It was not always the most glamorous crop, but it was guaranteed. And for nearly 1,000 guaranteed. And for nearly 1,000 years, skirret held that role. But eventually the system around farming began to change, and with it, the fate of this once trusted root. By the 17th century, agriculture was slowly shifting from subsistence farming, growing food mainly for the household, toward market agriculture, where crops were grown specifically to be sold. Expanding towns and cities created new demand. Farmers were no longer just feeding their families or local communities. They were supplying urban markets where appearance, transport, and shelf life began to matter more than ever before. Once vegetables entered the marketplace, a new set of rules emerged. Buyers in crowded market stalls were not digging up roots themselves. They were choosing produce with their eyes. Vegetables that looked clean, straight, and uniform attracted attention and sold faster. Crops that appeared irregular or messy suddenly faced a disadvantage, even if their flavor was superior. At the same time, agriculture itself was becoming more organized. Fields were expanding, harvests were increasing, and farmers began favoring plants that were easier to pull from the soil, easier to wash, and easier to bundle for transport. Uniform crops simplified the work of harvesting and selling. Skirret, for all its historical strengths, was not designed with market stalls in mind. Its roots grow in uneven clusters rather than a single tidy shape. Separating and cleaning them takes time. In a system where speed and consistency were becoming valuable, that complexity began to work against it. And just as these new market expectations were taking shape, another root vegetable began evolving in a direction that perfectly matched them. The carrot was about to change. You see, before the 17th century, the carrot did not look the way it does today. Early varieties grown across Europe and Asia came in several colors: deep purple, pale yellow, and even white. Many of them were fibrous, irregular in shape, and often had a strong earthy flavor. They were useful crops, but they had not yet become the dominant root vegetable we recognize now. That began to change in the Netherlands during the 1600s. Dutch growers were already skilled at selective breeding, especially with root crops. By repeatedly choosing plants with the most desirable traits, they gradually refined a new type of carrot. The goal was not simply better taste. Farmers were selecting for shape, color, and consistency. traits that made harvesting and selling easier. Over time, these efforts produced the carrot that now fills grocery stores. Bright orange, smooth, and tapered into a single clean root. The color itself was striking, and many historians believe it was deliberately encouraged to honor the House of Orange, the Dutch royal family. Whether symbolic or practical, the result was unmistakable. The new carrot was visually distinctive and easy to recognize in market stalls. But its true advantage wasn't just the color, it was the geometry. The orange carrot grows as one straight taproot. Pull it from the soil, brush off the dirt, and it is ready for transport. Farmers could harvest them quickly, stack them in bundles, and sell vegetables that looked almost identical to one another. For a market economy that was beginning to value uniform products, this mattered. Placed beside these new carrots, Skirret looked very different. Instead of a single root, it produced tangled clusters that had to be separated and cleaned individually. The contrast was obvious even before mechanized farming arrived. One crop had been shaped by centuries of natural growth. The other had been refined for the emerging demands of commerce. And that difference was about to decide which route would dominate the fields of Europe. As European agriculture continued evolving beyond the 17th century, farms began producing food on a larger and larger scale. By the 19th and early 20th centuries, many regions were transitioning toward increasingly mechanized systems. Harvesting tools improved, washing equipment became common, packing and processing facilities began handling enormous quantities of vegetables, moving from farms to cities. In this new environment, crops were no longer judged only by taste or reliability. They were judged by how well they worked with machines. A vegetable that could move smoothly through harvesting, washing, and sorting equipment had a clear advantage. A crop that slowed those systems down became a problem. This is where Skirret's unusual biology worked against it. Instead of producing a single root like a carrot, Skirret forms clusters of slender roots growing from one crown. These fascicles twist around each other in the soil, and when they are dug up, dirt collects in the narrow spaces between them. Cleaning the roots properly usually means separating the cluster and rinsing each one carefully. For a small garden, that is manageable. For large farms moving tons of produce, it becomes inefficient. Industrial washing systems are designed for crops that roll and tumble easily. Single roots that can spin through water jets and emerge clean on the other side. Carrots fit this design almost perfectly. Their smooth surface and uniform shape allow them to pass through sorting lines and mechanical peelers with very little interruption. Skirret does not behave that way. The clustered roots snag, trap soil, and require manual handling to prepare properly. As mechanization spread through agriculture, farmers gradually shifted toward crops that worked with these systems. Carrots adapted easily, Skirret did not. And in a food system increasingly built around speed and volume, that difference quietly pushed an ancient crop out of the fields. But when a crop disappears, it not only changes what farmers grow, it also changes what people eat. As Skirret quietly faded from European fields, the loss wasn't only botanical. Something about the kind of food people were growing changed as well. Modern carrots, the kind now grown worldwide, are composed of roughly 88% water. That high moisture content is one reason they grow quickly and store well in modern supply chains. They are crisp, easy to transport, and visually consistent. Skirret roots are very different. Analyses of historical and modern samples show that Skirret contains significantly higher dry matter, often measuring between 16 and 19%, compared to about 10% in carrots. Dry matter represents the part of a food that actually provides calories, minerals, and nutrients once the water is removed. In simple terms, Skirret packs more actual substance into every bite. Its sugar content is also striking. While a typical carrot contains around 4 to 5 grams of sugar per 100 grams, Skirret can contain 10 to 15 grams, depending on growing conditions and exposure to frost. Much of that sweetness comes from sucrose, the same sugar that gives many fruits their sweetness. Those sugars serve a biological purpose. As winter temperatures fall, Skirret converts stored starch into sugar, lowering the freezing point of its cells and protecting the plant underground. The result is a root that not only survives cold weather, but often tastes sweeter after frost. Mineral content follows a similar pattern. Studies comparing root vegetables have found skirret to contain higher levels of certain minerals, including calcium and trace elements like zinc, than carrots or parsnips. For earlier generations, that density mattered. In colder climates, where winter food supplies were limited, crops that stored concentrated energy underground had real survival value. But industrial agriculture rarely selects crops for nutrient density alone. It selects for efficiency, and skirret had already lost that contest. And once a crop loses its place in the market, it doesn't take long for it to disappear from the fields entirely. By the late 19th century, skirret had largely vanished from commercial agriculture. Seed catalogues that once listed it began dropping the crop in favor of vegetables that were easier to harvest, ship, and sell. As industrial farming expanded across Europe and North America, the old sugar root slowly disappeared from fields and markets. But disappearance in agriculture does not always mean extinction. Plants often survive quietly in places outside the commercial system. In skirret's case, the crop continued living in scattered pockets, maintained by botanical gardens, preserved in heirloom seed collections, and occasionally grown in small private gardens by people interested in older varieties of vegetables. Some historical varieties even lingered in parts of rural Europe well into the 19th century. Garden manuals from England during the Tudor and early modern periods still included instructions for growing skirret, and recipes from the time described the roots being boiled, stewed, or served with butter and cream. But as newer crops dominated commercial farms, knowledge of the plant gradually faded from everyday cooking. In recent decades, something unexpected has happened. Interest in heirloom crops and perennial vegetables has begun bringing skirret back into conversation. Gardeners exploring permaculture systems where plants are chosen for long-term resilience rather than annual harvest cycles have rediscovered the qualities that once made skirret valuable. A single plant can be divided and replanted to form new colonies. Mature crowns send up fresh growth each year, producing clusters of roots that can be harvested selectively without killing the plant. In other words, the crop behaves exactly the way it always has. The difference is that today it is no longer competing with industrial agriculture. Instead, it is finding a place in gardens where efficiency is measured differently, by resilience, diversity, and the simple fact that some plants were never meant to disappear in the first place. Which makes you wonder, if skirret disappeared not because it was weak, but because it didn't match the machinery of modern farming, how many other crops were buried for the same reason? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.